Welcome back to The Manual, a podcast where we talk about the stuff most men's podcasts are too afraid to touch. Today's episode is going to be wild, raw, and real. Buckle up. What is up, y'all? Welcome back to The Manual. Today we're diving into the power of the breath for emotional regulation. Does it have a place in Christianity? How do we reconcile
that new age crap out of here?
That's right. That's right. Does it have a place? What's the science? What does it actually do? And if it's good, how do we engage more of it? Right. We're also going to talk about a couple of crazy stories that have come out this month. Talk about situation that went down with some priests, an NFL player in Ohio. I want to get Nick's reaction to all of that and talk about all different sides of that story. And then the recent situation with Michael Tait from the Newsboys. His confession, exposure, confession, the Newsboys' response, and all sides of that story. And talk about that a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. But first, Nick, I'd love to know, how are you?
Doesn't matter how I'm doing, Joe. You know that.
Good point. Shove it down, baby. Shove it down. That's right.
Eye on the prize. There's stuff to do. Put the walls up. I think I'm doing well.
Facts don't care about your feelings, so stuff them.
That's right, baby. I'm doing well because there's been a long-time desire of mine that is finally coming to fruition. Hope deferred makes the heart.
Company?
No, but stay tuned, people.
Yeah,
We're getting
okay.
We got a supplement company starting to be built out. We're going to start with increasing your testosterone naturally. It's crazy how many people are coming to me talking about the testosterone stuff. Somebody today in the gym was like, "Hey, I liked your video on sunlight the other day and testosterone." I'm like, "Thanks, appreciate that." And somebody else is like, "Yeah, I love what you're doing." I said, "About testosterone or the porn thing?" They're like, "Well, the porn thing." They're kind of like quiet. Someone's like, "What? What are you doing?"
Wrote it down on a notepad.
The porn
slid it across to you. Yeah, that's right.
No, I'm doing well, but it doesn't. My doing wellness should not be because of circumstances, but there's a circumstance that's making me pretty excited. So on Father's Day, I got a card with a drawing on the front of it, a little watercolor painting from Teresa, and my present was permission. And she says, "You have 3 guesses what you have permission to do." And it was in the picture on the front was a clue. And every single week for many weeks, we have a husband and wife meeting every week. And there's been an agenda item that's been sitting there. And I basically just mention it every time. I'm like, I don't know what the conversation is, but this is still on the agenda, and it's a sauna. So I finally have, and it sounds weird to say permission, but hey, it's got to be a mutual thing. And she's like, "If you think we can financially do it, let's build that sauna." So we're transforming one of the old confessionals. Because if you don't know, listeners, I bought a house from where 9 priests used to live in it, and there's 2 confessionals in what we still call the chapel, because it's kind of chapel-esque. And we're finally turning one of those confessionals into a sauna. So I'm excited for that.
The confessional of heat, baby.
Come on, baby.
Contrast therapy.
We got the cold plunge sitting there right next to it. It's going to be sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are you building it out yourself, like a DIY thing? What's your plan there in terms of what that's going to look like?
Yep. So I'm doing it I'm DIYing it, not a kit. So I'm buying everything separate. Stuff's not cheap, man. Cedar ain't cheap. So basically getting the heater, getting the insulation, getting the cedar, get a couple other things for it. And I got a guy I know who's willing to help wire in the 240, the thick 10-gauge wire into I got to go across the room over the top. So I got to kind of pull some stuff down and go over to the circuit breaker. So he's going to help me with that. So hopefully next few weeks we'll have it.
Everybody needs a guy. Have you called the boys at the Timber Sauna Company?
I haven't, but this sounds expensive.
No, it's not expensive. You need to talk to our boy Joel about his insider track to cheap cedar.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
Joel Downs, if you're listening, I'm coming for you.
Yep.
Timber
1-800 Joel Downs.
Timber
That's how you find
Sauna.
him. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
How many people do you think are going to fit into this thing?
Yeah, there could. Comfortably 4. We could probably squeeze in 6 though. It's just about 8 feet long, 7.5 feet tall, and about 3.5, 4 feet wide.
Okay.
So it's a nice closet.
Yep. Yep. He's going to tell you icky stove is the only way to go. Every other kind of stove is cheap crap. So you're going to have to
Really?
make a choice there. I know Hume is another popular one, but don't tell him if you're going Hume. That's all I can say. That's actually, I don't know for sure if he's totally against Hume, but I know there's a number of others, and he's an icky man.
Okay.
Icky kind of a guy. You catch my drift?
Well, got it. I do catch it. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's been a crazy week. We're 2 weeks out from baby number 4. My son just finished his last round of chemo. He's finally getting back on his feet from all of his blood gets super depressed after all that. Pretty much loses all red platelet. Pretty much his ANC gets super low. His whole immune system goes completely zero. So we're sort of on high alert for a week and a half, and then he starts to come back and be himself more. And so it's awesome to be in that last round. I was supposed to get hernia surgery on Tuesday. He had a really rough night Monday night, so we woke up Tuesday morning. It was just like, this ain't going to work. So that day I actually went rucking. I went for a rucking walk with the kids, pushed the boys in the double stroller. And my daughter was biking. It was her first time going. We got mountain bike trails in the backwoods by the path in our house. And so she did that. It was like a proud dad moment watching her go by herself. She's 8, but she wanted to do it. And I've suggested once or twice before, and she's just been like, I think too nervous to go without me. So it's like, no, I'll be on the other side of the trail. If you get scared, just turn around, come back here and follow us. And she just crushed it both times, and her eyes lit up. She just loved it.
Come on.
Anyway, I share that story because I went 4 miles, this loop that I usually walk often through the woods by our place, and like zero pain. And so I was like, oh, okay. I think I'm going to try to do more physically. So I've been doing some body squats, push-ups, light sit-ups, and then I have I'm following a regimented workout routine that I found on, I think, social media or YouTube, I don't remember, of a guy who was supposed to get surgery and decided he was going to try to go the physical therapy route, and both stretching as well as strengthening the abdominal wall to see if he could go basically repair it naturally. So I was kind of like, you know what? This baby means I'm probably not getting surgery for the next 2 months, realistically. Like, I'm just going to push it, try to continue to go hard, probably dial back pretty significantly in terms of the heavy lifting I do. But I can do plenty when it comes to rowing, running. I went for a run this morning before a discovery call I had to hop on. That felt awesome. So, yeah, feeling pretty good about all of it. It's been, like I said, a crazy week. Sometimes getting to nighttime and you're just like, what the heck? Which way's up? What just happened? But learning in those moments to give myself what I need, or even when I feel like I'm getting stuck, overwhelmed, which is still not too infrequent of an experience, learning to be able to give, to sort of like lead myself, coach myself in those moments, and be able to see and experience, an ever deepening reality of the integration that we talked about last week, that we're after, that we desire for ourselves, and be able to hand on to others. So I'm learning, growing through it all, and grateful. So that's my summary.
Always more. I love it.
Yeah.
I also love the niche, man, or the niche, as everyone's saying these days. The a fitness coach that niches in or niches in on the abdominal wall in particular, and strengthening that because of hernias. The riches are in the niches, baby.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I don't know I forget how many YouTube videos. Again, I think it was YouTube, but it was like a couple 100,000 views.
Yeah.
On this one video of this reel of him showing you, okay, here's the 10 different workouts I do that I did over a year to be able to get back. And One of the things
That's
that he
awesome.
talks a lot about is your groin tendons get so tight because we don't stretch often enough. And I have never stretched my whole. I'm bad at takes too long.
Yeah.
I want to get it in and work out and get out. So I don't stretch enough. And so being able to increase that ability of those tendons to not be pulling on your abdominal wall is really important in addition, because one of the things he said is like a traditional hernia surgery, they'll actually go in and clip those tendons to relieve some of that pressure,
Oh.
which they don't do in laparoscopic surgeries anymore. And so the surgery has evolved a little bit to be less invasive, if you will. But if those are still tight, even after the surgery, they are putting in this mesh pad, which the hernia then really can't get around. But you could still spring another one just because you're still pulling and you haven't stretched. So I've experienced like being able to do the 8, 9, 10 workout circuit routine that I've been doing every day. Can really feel, if I go for a walk, just like way looser, way more flexible, way less pain, and then my gait, whether I'm running, walking, even riding a bike, just feels like I have way more flexion and extension on those joints, which is big. And I've been recovering from a ACL double meniscus repair surgery from playing basketball. It's 1.5 years ago now, on the same side. And so, I can feel the difference in that still pretty significantly. So still working back from that, I'm aware of. And so,
Golly,
being able to
old
stretch.
man.
I'm getting old, dude. I'm getting old. Ancient
you
of
still
days, as they say.
Yeah. You still got it.
Well, the sauna thing that you brought up, really interesting. I saw a video the other day that talked about a guy talking about one of the most beneficial sauna routines you can have. 180 degrees or more for a total of 2 hours in a 24-hour period.
Okay.
So 30 minutes, break, cool down, just stand outside, or you can go into a contrast therapy like a cold plunge, cold shower, whatever. Then back in for another 30 minutes, out for a cool down. And then some other time of the day, repeat the same thing. So it's 1 hour, it's probably an hour and a half total, 2 different times a day. But you don't have to do that. You only have to do that once a week, basically, to get a lot of the benefits that we understand. And the specific benefit that he talked about that they measured in this study was your growth hormone.
Yep.
If you do this, your growth hormone is increased almost 16 times.
16 times.
16 times the normal level, which is extremely then regenerative for your body and, increases your body's capacity to be able to repair and heal. So I found that very interesting. That's obviously 1 day a week, you're devoting a non-insignificant portion of time. But if you do that in the morning, do that at nighttime once a week. I think for a lot of people, and only so many people have saunas at their house, but let's say you're going to go to a place. It's like, well, 1 day a week is maybe a more realistic routine than like, I got to go every day and do this routine. I think is when a lot of people, saunas, contrast therapy have become so popular on the internet now. A lot of people are wondering, how do I actually build that into my life and routine? So again, it is not a insignificant period of time for sure. It's not like, oh, just do this once 15 times, and 180 degrees isn't exactly a cakewalk.
Right.
But there's something real there.
All right.
So get after it.
You can listen to an episode of the manual while you're in there.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully not too far distant future, we'll be recording a podcast with you in your sauna.
I'll do it.
How about that?
Let's go. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about breath, baby.
I want to talk about breath. So I want to throw this to you because I've learned so much from you in this area of really harnessing the power of the breath and what it does to physiologically and psychologically change what we're paying attention to, what we are even experiencing, right? The ability to change your state is something that we talk a lot about in our conversations between you and I and our process working with guys. What does it look like to become state flexible? You know, I'm in a state of emotional overwhelm. What does it look like to move from that state to a state of present and calm and regulated? So I'm curious. I just want to hear from you. If you were, you know, you get pushback from somebody in a Christian context, like that's a bunch of new age baloney. Like, I think we got to be really careful with that. What comes to mind first? Where are you at with reconciling this sort of not entirely Wim Hof style breathing, but I think he's the one that first sort of like mainstream popularized the idea of using breath to overcome extreme hurdles in life. And it was part of the extremism that made him popular for sure. And then it's sort of become more and more normalized. The more people are talking about what, like, if you practice breath work as a simple tool, you can do what depression meds do or anxiety meds do, you know?
Significantly
so I'd love to hear your thoughts
more
about
successfully too.
How you've reconciled those things in your own head as you've learned about them, as you've implemented them in your own life, and not abandoned your discipleship of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I don't know if personally I've needed to reconcile just because of my worldview. I would say my worldview is probably the best worldview of anybody I know.
Ain't it for everybody?
Hey!
Yeah.
Let's just say yoga, right? We just get so... the yogis do not have a monopoly on body posture. Yes, I don't want to open up a can here, but like I've just never thought like so many things were like a big deal, like breath, the breath of life. It's something that God has given us. So I have had some conversations with people like say, Nick, you got to be careful. Like we don't want to conflate the breath with the presence of God. I'm like, absolutely. It can be a launching pad into the presence of God, certainly. One of the best books I've read on that is Into the Silent Land. It's an Orthodox guy wrote about it, talking about body posture, the breath, and the prayer word. Because we pray as humans, right? We don't pray as disembodied spirits, as angels. And so our breath, our body matters when it comes to prayer. I'll just riff a little bit just on the power of breath and how I've experienced it in my own life be of benefit. Just by way of maybe anecdote, even yesterday I was on a coaching call with a guy, and we have a daily exercise to do breath work. And what that means is we have a daily prayer breath exercise. The current one that's in the app, and we circulate them, is about 6 minutes long. And we call upon the Holy Spirit. We sit up straight, shoulders relaxed, chest open, and just draw our attention to your breath. And I just want to encourage you, listener, if you're not driving, I got a story on that. Don't do that. But if you're sitting still, just pause right now and just sit up straight. Just take a minute, relax your shoulders, straight, alert, but relaxed. Open up your chest and just, first of all, just pay attention to your breath. And one thing that's interesting is it's hard to pay attention to your breath without controlling it. That's an interesting thing. Just try to pay attention, because the breath is an anchor, and we want to use the breath as an anchor to bring us into the present moment. Why? To help us to become aware and curious about everything we're experiencing. We say that mindfulness, or as we say, practicing presence in this present moment, but to use the word mindfulness, we say is pro-anxiety. What do we mean by that? It's not anti anything, really, because what we want to do is open up fully to reality. And breath has a phenomenal ability to do that, to open us up, to help us get curious, and to welcome everything we're experiencing. So that's the typical sort of breath work we invite guys to do in the morning, to use the breath as an anchor, to breathe through. But we also have like a switches course in our app, where a guy, if he's like at a level 9 craving and he's struggling, this can just be like a fire drill sort of situation where it's sort of Wim Hof-esque, which is like holotropic breathing. And what that is, if you guys don't know what that is basically is two things. One, it's hyperventilating your bloodstream. You're oxygenating your blood. So what that does is you're breathing pretty intensely. And when you breathe intensely, what you're doing is you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. And what that nervous system is, it's related to fight or flight. We think fight or flight's bad. Sometimes fight or flight has a negative connotation. But if you are in a fight or flight situation, you got to fight or you got to flee. That's when you want it. The problem is when we get stuck in that all day long. So yesterday, he's in a level 9 craving. He does this. It starts with this intense breath, activates the sympathetic, and then ends with a long, extended breath hold where you release the breath and you hold it for a significant amount of time, a minute. People don't think they can hold their breath for a minute. You can easily do it. I've done it for up to 5 minutes once. Don't recommend that. But what that does is that long breath, it gets you into a parasympathetic state. And why that's important, that is like that 5-minute breath or 3-minute breath exercise is kind of an icon of how we want to live our lives. And I think we've mentioned this before. We really want a combination in our lives of parasympathetic and sympathetic, or sympathetic and parasympathetic activation of our nervous system. So for example, you get into a cold plunge, you are activated, you are in fight or flight. Your system is going bonkers. You're doing intense breath. I mean, your body just goes into that state. What happens immediately after that is you get into a rest and digest state. That's really just healthy for the whole person to go into those moments of like you do a HIIT workout. Within the next hour after that, endorphins are released, dopamine's released, all these good feel-good chemicals are released. And so that's what like the breath can do. Couple other thoughts I'll just say before I can kick it over to you, Joe, if you just have any other thoughts or questions or clarifications. The breath is both an indication of your state, and it can help you control and get into a proper state that you would like to, particularly those two states, parasympathetic and sympathetic. So what do I mean? Most of the time, most people are living in relatively threat mode all day long. Mm-hmm. What happens is because of that they're like in stress mode all day long, their breath is usually very much in the chest, it's not in the diaphragm, and it's very shallow. So what that means is that's showing that they're probably in threat mode. So they're in threat mode, they're going to breathe shallowly. You can also breathe really quickly and kind of get yourself into threat mode. So it works both ways. And the breath is really fascinating because it's part of your autonomic, I'm throwing out a lot of words here, autonomic nervous system, which what does that mean? It's your heart, your organs are a part of your autonomic nervous system. Your heart just beats without you having to think about it. You don't control it. It just does it automatically. The breath does that as well. Your lungs are a part of your autonomic nervous system. What's unique about it is when you're conscious of it, you pay attention to it, you can control it, which is just a very unique thing. And it allows you to bring yourself into the present moment, to be an anchor. Like it is the thing. It's not just a static thing, which is why it's really helpful. It's dynamic. It's arguably the best thing to use to bring you into the present moment because you always have it with you. It's always moving, and that's really helpful to pay attention to something when it's moving like that and brings you into the present moment to become aware of what you're experiencing and what's happening around you. So there's plenty more I could share. But for me, it's helped me encounter the Lord more, and help because you can't attention is at the heart of devotion. Yeah, I've probably heard somebody say you cannot pray if you can't pay attention, if you can't be in the present moment. So getting back to we pray as humans, not as angelic spirits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, one of the facts that I learned early on in my own study of the breath and its utility, especially in emotional regulation, like you talked about, is the understanding of the physical, like the neural link between the lungs, the brain, and the heart. Mm-hmm. And when your diaphragm is engaged in breathing, when it's moving up and down, that cadence of up, down, and whichever one is more substantial communicates to your brain what to tell the heart about how quickly it should be beating. And so as you control your breath, that long exhale is, like you said, a physical choice that communicates through your brain, the information system, to tell the heart what to do.
It's crazy.
Right? And we oftentimes say in our coaching process, or to guys working with them one-on-one, is that it's nearly impossible to control an overwhelmed mind with the mind, right? So it's not that I can think about my heart slowing down, right?
Yeah.
Or I can think through my overwhelm. Oftentimes, especially in a state of significant intensity, that's nearly impossible. But I can choose to take a few deep breaths and just pay attention to that.
Yeah.
That no matter what my experience of compulsion or obsessive thoughts or whatever that is that I'm trying to solve, whatever problem or challenge I'm facing, working with guys, I find almost universally, they can, even in that case, stop and pause and slow down long enough to pay attention to your breath. And then the rest of it is, in a certain kind of sense, automatic. When I take these deep cleansing breaths, that's just the way my body works. That's just the way that my brain works. Like, I didn't build that highway between my lungs to my brain to my heart.
Right.
That was already put there, and I'm just becoming mindful of my breath is slowing my heart rate down, which is, like you said, dropping myself into that parasympathetic nervous system. And when I think of guys with addiction, and this is something that I never really closely paid attention to when I was in states of craving, but I could connect with so easily once I started to learn about it, is what are you feeling? What are you physically experiencing when you want to act out? There's all kinds of energy out to my limbs. I'm super locked in, highly focused. I can tell that there's a lot of energy in my eyes. Like there's a lot of focus and attention being put to my visual experience. My heart's racing. My breath is shallow, right? These are physiological responses to that fight or flight state. And again, which one do we solve first? Do we try to start working with the body, or do we try to start working with the mind? Well, there's only so much rationalizing you can do. Or is that the word?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Sure,
Reasoning?
I'll go with it. Reasoning. With our brain in that place, because we're overwhelmed. We're no longer thinking, right? And so if you're trying to, even someone outside of that person, trying to think with them, you're just thinking straight into the emotional cortex. And that's not a thinking part of our brain. It's a reactive part, trained to keep us safe. Right? And so we become highly defensive. We become highly reactive. We become highly protective. And very often those things, as learned responses, don't serve us.
Yeah, and those two parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the limbic part, the more activated one is, the less activated the other is. So if your emotional cortex is firing, your prefrontal cortex is. So good luck trying to, in that moment, this is what you're saying, to really think yourself out of a situation. But when we breathe, when you're able to calm down your limbic cortex, your emotional cortex, then your prefrontal, and it also gets more oxygenated. Your brain gets more oxygenated and comes back online, and you're able to start thinking more clearly because of that. You're back into that rest state, thinking more clearly.
Right. Yeah, and two interesting points there that come to mind as you're sharing. That's pretty much every guy I've ever had a discovery call with says something to the effect of, at some point it just feels automatic. This trained response to be able to go to pornography or to go to some pleasure stimulus to be able to get relief. And the fact of the matter is, yes, you're right. You didn't willingly choose to turn your thinking brain off and your emotional cortex. Some trigger presented that, and your brain just knows what to do. And so it's learning, okay, what do I do because the answer isn't more discipline, because that would require more agency of thought or will, which is governed by my prefrontal cortex, which is no longer a
Right.
player in the scenario I find myself
Yeah.
in. So what do you do
Right.
when you are no longer in control in that kind of way, right? Well, we could either just become, we could justify, well, like, I'm no longer in control, so I have no control over it, or we could learn to be able to engage the practice of the body to compel the brain to shift to a new state. And that's what's been
Yeah.
so powerful for me, is because overwhelm and anxiety have oftentimes come out of
Yeah.
nowhere for me when I find myself either experiencing some sort of familiar trigger or having the opportunity, space. So like the kids are
Yeah.
down for bed. All of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed and anxious.
Right.
What do I do? What do I do then? Because I experience it as very stuck or all encompassing.
Yeah.
What do I do when I get to that place? And so
Totally.
in addition to learning to breathe as a daily ritual, getting into a prayer life, which has been incredibly beneficial to me personally as well. I was one who for many, many years went to prayer and was like, yep, this ain't it. Like, this does not make me any better. I'm just here distracted and feeling all the stuff, and I leave more on edge than I showed up. Like, what am I doing wrong? And so I'd oftentimes just quit or go long periods of time without praying at all because of that. And again, is the goal of prayer simply to feel good about it? No. But it is to be deep within the presence of God and to learn to experience that body,
100%.
mind,
It's
and
communion.
spirit. It's like, I want to touch heaven every time I go to prayer, right?
Yeah.
If that's the
Yeah.
goal. And so breath has been a
Get
powerful
reconnected.
regulator in order
That's
to
right.
allow my mind and spirit to be fully present to something within me and outside of me in that kind of transcendent way, which has been a powerful driver. And it's also been incredibly powerful and effective. And I've experienced it many times when I am in a heightened state of some kind of activation.
Totally.
For me, that's overwhelm and anxiety.
Yeah.
And to be able to down regulate that to the point where I can make a willful choice or to choose really, okay, what do I need? How do I give myself what I need? How do I ask for what I need in these moments? What do I need to sort out? What am I anxious about? All that sort of stuff to be able to move beyond it, and oftentimes to fully feel it, like you said at the beginning, not just to shove it down or to ignore it,
Right.
but down regulating the what feels like the spiraling experience, the worsening experience of that emotion. The breath helps me down regulate at the same time as it helps me fully feel it, like you said.
Yeah.
You said earlier, level 9 craving. Can you explain for somebody who might not know what the heck that means, what that means?
Yeah, what it means to me, and then you can feel free to riff off it. But I whether it's with, for me, alcohol and porn both played a similar role, where if I start going down the path of I'm going to act out, maybe I'm like at a 4 or a 5, and I internally make the decision I'm going to go there. It's really hard to slow down the train, and then it would happen in one or two different ways. It would build up over a day, or it would just hit me. And I would be at this place where my heart's pumping, I'm tunnel vision, I am going to, I'm gonna go drink and hide it, or I'm gonna go look at porn and masturbate. The decision has basically been made, and I got a little bit of thought of I don't want to do this. I don't want to, but I'm basically just, I don't have any power. Basically, I have next to no power to say no in this moment. I feel like I've already basically lost. So I'm already going, and the train isn't stopping. Basically at a level 9. That's what the experience is like for me.
The scale is on a
that?
scale of 0 to 10, right? And it's largely just a self-awareness building scale measure to be able to understand and have some level of compassion of understanding this was habituated over a long period of time, where before, maybe when I was in middle school or high school when this started, it was coming at a 4 or a 5, and I gave into it. And as I became more desensitized to it, in that the hit wasn't as high, and I started to extend seeking behavior, looking for more extreme things to be able to get more of a high, I also was experiencing more and more of an intense initial experience of craving when it came to get me to go back to it, right? And so a lot of times when guys show up to our process, this has been a regular habit for 7 to 20 plus years in their life, right? And understanding that training was over a very long period of time, and the more you train yourself on that, the more intensely it usually comes when it comes back. And so 7, 8, 9 isn't really an indicator of how undisciplined you are, as much as it is an indicator of how habituated this cycle, this ritual of trigger response is, as an automated pathway out of whatever that pain trigger is, right? And so when you say level 9 craving, I'm hearing 9 out of 10. It's about as bad as it could ever be, in that agency of choice, capacity to be able to think clearly, to think rationally is pretty much gone. That all those physiological symptoms, if it comes out of nowhere or happen in an instant, right? I mean, oftentimes that's created by an adrenaline rush, in the same way you would get if all of a sudden there's a lion standing in front of you, or someone's trying to attack you. As like your brain and body was created with the capacity to shift into that state instantaneously. That's not your fault, but the habit has trained in you that is how you respond to XYZ trigger, right? And to go to level 9 instantaneously is to get completely locked into that, or to experience that slow-growing sense of impending doom to the point that it gets to tunnel vision, locked in. I can't be okay or have relief until I choose to act out.
Totally. Yeah. Joe, I just want to say, going back to the breath, and you mentioned something after putting kids down to bed, one thing that's just been wildly fruitful is breathing with my kids. And there's 2 times that come to mind that we consistently do it. And I mean, from when they were 2 years old, Judy was doing it at 2, where they're just, I mean, their emotional cortex is just completely fired up. There's no reasoning with them. There's no helping them reframe a situation of her sister bit her or whatever, which just happened about an hour ago. But I hold them close and I say, breathe with me. And I do it. And we can, it's just wild, even the science behind like how they share our prefrontal cortex with them, and what happens. Like, this is like a spiritual thing, but also very much like a neuroscientific, biological. It's pretty crazy, the science behind this. But when I start to breathe slowly and invite her into it, and then she can start doing it, and at first she's like shaking, trying to do it, and then she starts to calm down. It's so incredible to help them just to regulate with the breath, and it freaking works. The other time we consistently do it is we started doing this probably 6 months ago, around then. We start every dinner, whether or not, I mean, tonight we're having a couple people over for dinner, and we will start with 3 breaths. And if we don't, the girls are going to call us out on it. Like, Dad, we didn't start with the breaths. And we just inhale through our nose to a count of 4, hold it, and I lead us every time. Exhale, we blow like we're blowing through a straw for about 7 seconds. And even just one of those, you're more present. It's unbelievable. 3 of those, and then we pray, and we're bringing ourselves fully into dinner. The kids love it. It feels great. It helps you be present and just slow down. And it's so easy not to do. It's like, I got to go. I got to move. What if you slow down for 20, 30 seconds and just breathed? It's been an incredible gift to our family as well.
That's amazing. I love that so much. Yeah. Thinking about the way that I'm reading this book on intentional fatherhood by John Tyson. It's amazing. And the recent chapter was all about initiation. I thought of you. You got to read it. because you resonate deeply with this chapter in particular. But we've been taught so little about how to do so much that life requires of us. No one's shown us how to do and practice things, basic things like the classic stuff we think about when it comes to masculinity and manhood, changing a tire, changing the oil, like whatever.
Right. Yep.
And it extends to stuff like this, the process. I mean, you just described the process of initiation. Like, I'm going to lead it. Well, the day will come, I'm sure, when there's an opportunity to be able to hand over that. Right now it's we do, I lead, you watch.
Right.
And then it's going to be the handing over. Okay, now you do.
Yeah.
You lead. We'll do it together. But I'm going to participate. And most of us men, what we learned how to do was to suppress, to explode, or to avoid emotion. That's our training.
Right.
And I would venture to guess, I'm sure there's plenty of data out there to support this, 90+% of us. We're not handed tools to learn how to emotionally regulate. And this is one of the two core questions when it comes to porn addiction that men have to answer is, how do I need to develop an emotional regulation? Where am I at currently? How do I meet hard, difficult, challenging emotion? And what are the tools I currently have at my disposal to do it?
Right.
And then what other tools could I deploy? And then how could it change the solutions that I come to in order to manage my internal experience?
Yep.
And you are describing, and we're talking about here, one of the most, like you said, easily accessible, it's in us, universal, always available tools that God gave us. But for many of us, maybe for those listening, this is the first time they've ever thought or considered the possibility that the solution to emotional regulation, or the beginning steps to emotional regulation, is within them, is sitting in their chest waiting to be paid attention to.
Yeah.
And these routines, these practices are easily habituated if we'll choose it. And so just an encouragement is I think two things. One, you just described the role you are playing as father in instilling and initiating your children in a lifelong exercise that is deeply beneficial to the human experience, right?
Yeah.
To learn to manage their stuff, to manage emotion, to learn how to act and operate, even in the face of difficult things. And you're doing that spontaneously and then ritualistically, if you will.
Yep.
Or as part of your family culture. And I think many men, even myself included, as I'm listening to that, I am mourning to a certain degree. Like, I wish I had that. And also inspired by that testimony, because, I didn't start practicing stuff like this until I hit 30. And seeing the growth in myself that has unfolded as I've started to practice tools like this in my own life, and the benefit it is. It's not too late to learn. Like we said a couple episodes again, the best time to start is yesterday, and the second best time to start is today, right? Like, we can learn how to be in control of our emotional life and learn how to regulate. And the breath is maybe the most powerful way to start. Anything else you want to say on that topic?
I just got that scripture in front of me. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Come on. It's good stuff. There's a lot we can say, but it's such a gift. The only problem is it's free, so we don't value it. You can't bottle it up and sell it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. My health insurance doesn't cover that, man. I can't.
That's right.
I can't take it. Yeah. Funny. Well, I want to make a dramatic shift. There's a couple of things that have happened in the past couple of weeks, and I think it's really interesting to be able to look at for a number of reasons. One, because we're in this space helping guys. I mean, every day you and I, Nick, have the great privilege of being in guys' stuff, seeing the ugliness,
Yeah.
the shame, the fantasy, the ritualization of porn, sexual issues, but also the healing, the child inside every man that longs to be seen, to be understood, to be known, to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And various ways that's been exposed or hidden, shamed or acknowledged at different points of a guy's life, and then the role that plays in developing what he is attempting to in becoming a man. And so I think there's so much that I want to look at. We're only going to be able to high level to a certain degree the sides of these stories that are at play here, but I think they're really important cultural moments in particularly the Christian context that we find ourselves in today, of trying to do a better job as a church, if you will, as a body of people that are trying to figure out how to build a culture that allows people to thrive or not, to be able to deal with these issues that now have become center stage in all of our lives, and even in the context of leaders and heroes and musicians in the church. So I want to start with this story from Ohio. It broke earlier this month. I think it was at the beginning of this month that Jake McQuaid, who used to actually play for a minute for the Minnesota Vikings, he is a long snapper, the most undervalued position.
That's right.
An NFL football team. Maybe that's the punter. I don't know. I think it's probably
when
the
you
long
need
snapper.
him.
You build a good career being a long snapper. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Stood up in the middle of a church service to confront the parish staff, priests, and particularly the priest that was there from the archdiocese level, reading a letter during the sermon for that it was a daily mass on a Saturday.
Oh, is that what happened? There was a priest reading like a letter from the bishop, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
So a priest, Father Williams, comes from the archdiocese to address some rumor and scandal
about the priest that's
about
there
the priest
at the pastor
that
of
was
the church.
stationed at this parish.
Okay, and he's
So the
there
allegations
at the
from
mass.
the allegations from a whistleblower who's unnamed and up to this point you can't really find anything out there about who that was, sent images of a laptop at the parish, owned by the parish and housed at the parish, that contained pornographic films and images. And it came out later, actually came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week, that not only was it just pornography, but it was also occult-themed porn and violent pornography. So this whistleblower sends it to a parishioner that then brings it forward to the archdiocese and to other outlets and channels for review. So they looked into it, or so they say, at the archdiocese level, and this priest comes and delivers basically their report of was there any evidence of misconduct. And in this report, he says there was no wrongdoing, either criminally or ecclesiastically, that has been substantiated. And that one of the priests that's on sabbatical right now is just coincidental that it was a previously planned sabbatical. Then it goes on to say, like gossip, the spreading of rumors is sinful, and we should all work to overcome this tendency of our fallen human nature, which is technically true. So in what transpires from this, so they read this letter, then Jake McQuaid stands up and says, basically, you're telling me that this is false. Did this actually happen? To which somebody from the congregation responded, this is the wrong time to do it. And he says, no, this is the necessary time to do it. We've asked and haven't heard back. Is this true or false? And he's told to cut it out. Other parishioners get involved. There was a police on duty there that comes and escorts him out of the parish, and it goes away. And reading this, my initial reaction was like, dang. How in that situation, credible, if these are credible reports, how can this be proven as not true? You know, it seems very true. And also understanding the reality of my own experience being addicted and experimenting with various things and seeing stuff is like the extreme examples, though I've never viewed occult themed pornography before, aren't shocking to me. That doesn't, I mean, obviously there's a certain level of like, dang, if this is true, that guy was, or guys was in the thick of it. That it has obviously been going on for a long time and is real.
Built up. Yep.
But there's also the side of me of it oftentimes, and I think this is going to be the case when we look at this next story, that there's the institutional reaction to like, how do we navigate this, right? There's part of all of us that wants to self-protect and wants to be more transparent. I mean, this is, in a Catholic context, is certainly not the first time widespread scandal, sexual scandal in particular. We just lived through dramatic realities. And so, you know, I understand thinking about Jake. Now, I imagine he thought for a long time. I'm going to, like, premeditated. I'm standing up. Like, I don't care what he says, probably knowing that they were going to say this didn't happen, that they've checked it out and there isn't a problem, and that no matter what, you know, he's going to call it out. So, like, I see his side of it, and I think from his side of it, I think, like, so what should he have done? I think of the examples from Scripture about how to confront issues and problems. I go to you individually and say, hey, man, we got beef. Well, you don't want to listen. Right? You tell me it's my problem or something else. Okay, so I get somebody else and come back to you. And so this story and what's come out, there's no evidence of, I mean, there is clear evidence of different parishioners coming to them, leaders in the church individually, and then as groups saying that. And it's gotten to this place of saying, well, there, you know, there's no wrongdoing substantiated. In the meantime, there is pretty credible evidence of screenshots of pictures, right? And so it just makes me, my initial reaction is just a wrestle of like, you know, when you read a story and you're like, it just feels like there's too much here going on to not be true.
Yeah.
But you're far enough removed from it to say, well, who really, if they're saying there's no problem, then we should probably trust them, right? There's no problem. I'm curious to hear your feedback and thoughts as you think about this reality.
Shit. Man. What are my thoughts? So he basically stands up and the priest is there. Does the priest say like
nothing? My understanding is there was one of the two priests that's stationed at this parish was there. The other one was on a, as they describe, a previously planned sabbatical.
Okay. Ooh. Man, I agree. It's kind of like, man, what are my thoughts? It's like social media is the worst platform and place to have any sort of dialogue. Standing up in the middle of mass, like I'm not necessarily even, my only judgment on that action is that probably isn't the best space to have the dialogue, but certainly he probably wasn't looking for that. He's like, I'm looking for an answer.
Yep.
Did you do it? Did you not? Just tell us. And so I think, at the end of the day, I do think people are merciful when there's just total ownership. Certainly more merciful than just like beating around the bush. Like, this happened, and it is evil, and the action done was wrong, and we are taking action. But this, I think we're oftentimes interested in protecting And I don't know. It sounds like there's substantiated evidence, like you said, that he did it. I certainly don't know enough right now. I haven't looked into it enough.
That somebody did it, right? There is no evidence. There's no screenshot that says the priest was sitting there but
two different.
It is a computer that they have access to that apparently was used, maybe it's their individual personal, church-owned computer. I don't know whether or not that's true, but there's enough evidence to be stirred up. What really strikes me, I think of playing this out in my own head. If I'm in that community, like you said, I just want to know the truth, and not to skewer somebody, especially in the role that we play. Is like, because I know how exposing that would feel,
totally,
how raw that would experience, and clearly how bad it's gotten if it's true.
Yeah, right.
Like. No, I would be thrilled for you to go to rehab and get the support that you need. Like, totally. I would want our community to be able to get behind you. Yeah, there are consequences. You cannot stay here in your current state and to do this. But there are so many testimonies on the other end of this of people who have gotten caught, who have gone off to do the deep work, not in hiding. Right? This isn't like we're going to stuff them in this back room and hopefully it blows. No, it's like, you're caught. Everybody that needs to know, in virtue of this, you leading this community, I think the whole community needs to know. You go off and do the deep work and come back and say, like, hey guys, I've done the deep work. This is how I wasn't living, and this is now what I know I need. This is how I have to live. I mean, I think we're seeing this really publicly in the Protestant space with the work and now the podcasting and the public facing side of it with
Carl Lentz.
His Lights On podcast, right? Mega church pastor gets exposed, infidelity, completely goes away for 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Tries to save his marriage, save his family. And he acknowledges that wasn't, I didn't get to choose whether or not they chose to stay with me. I had to go off to rehab to save myself, save my own life. Yeah. And do deep work around where this stuff came from. And that's what breaks my heart from the priest side of things.
Yeah, that's good, Joe.
Is if it's true and the institution or the individuals there were trying to protect him by keeping it tight-lipped or out of the public square, it remains hidden. And so a part of him stays hidden.
Yeah.
And his role, his job, his vocation, his purpose, his calling is to eventually go back and do just that. And that, until it gets exposed, will always live in the back of his head, in his heart, in his mind of, I got caught, but not really.
Yep.
I have to stay hidden. I could never come out and do what Carl is doing, which is like, you guys want me to describe what happened, how bad it got, and not only that, but where it came from, how it started, how it evolved, how it's going, what's different now. It's like, when I think of the world we live in, we need more leaders like that. And so I think 100%. About it, it's like in this situation is like, thank God it wasn't way worse in terms of crossing the flesh barrier or some of the other extreme examples we've heard where there are criminal repercussions.
Yeah.
But my heart hurts for the priest side of it. And I also, again, like I said earlier, I see their side being the community side of those that want an answer. It's like, not only am I being told, like, even though there were these images, there's nothing to see here. That's how it would feel like to me. If I get that statement back as like, I saw the images, I know these people, I could imagine this being a possibility because I'm doing this work and I see the stuff. We work with priests. We work with different clergy. Like, we know the reality of what exists out there. This isn't too far out there to be possible, right? And I not only on top of that told like, yeah, there's nothing to see here. Oh, by the way, you guys are wrong for spreading rumors, and
Yeah.
you
And
should that's
and
really sinful.
gossip's a
You should
sin.
stop doing.
Yeah.
Everybody right now, stop talking about it. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, oh, like that just
Yeah.
makes me more suspicious. You
I
know,
know.
and again, in terms of your and I's situation, it's out there. Does it affect us? Not really. Is it outside of our sphere of influence? For sure. Should we probably leave it alone? Maybe. But when I think about it and reflect of it in the context of the work that we do with real human beings every single day,
Right.
I think it's like there are people on both sides of this thing that I think get left off worse because of the current outcome of the situation than they do better. Community, right? Addiction is an intimacy disorder. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Is everybody after this situation more or less connected?
Right.
I would say less. To the people in this situation, archdiocese to parish, parish to community, community to diocese, do they trust each other more or less after this situation?
Yeah.
Outside looking in, I'd have to say less.
Yeah.
And that's what breaks my heart, because that's the stuff that gets us to where we are today, right? The compounding effect of
Yeah.
not talking about the broader context of like a leader in a church, but in my own life. I sin and then I hide. I break my own ideals and then I hide for fear that someone would see the incongruency of what I say and what I do. Right? Does that give me more or less capacity to actually become the thing that I say I want to be, or less capacity?
Right.
Less, right?
Yeah.
And that's what, more than anything, in all these cases, breaks my heart, because I think we both want, and I believe that's the case for everybody, but operating out of some balance of self-protection or anger or whatever on all sides is... I think everybody in that situation wants the truth, and they want the healing, and they want to be whole. They also want to be okay and to be at peace. But what does it require to navigate after a situation like this to get back to that point? And I love the work that we get to do, because the platform that we have is... by the platform, I mean our work of having experienced stuff in our own lives and now being able to work with other guys puts us regularly in situations where we get to watch transformation of a guy encountering the stuff he's least proud of in life, that he would least like posted on social media and seen by the world. You know, and there's this great talk by Christine Kane where she said, you can either choose to be exposed by God in the dark or the world in the light. Stop seeking after a platform or a spotlight. Stay in the dark room as long as possible with God. And I have the words dark room tattooed on my arm to hopefully remind myself personally of that. Those are my options. But the stuff has to be seen. Yeah. The stuff that lives in me has got to be seen. And I could do that in the dark. And what that means doesn't mean just in the dark by myself alone, because again,
hiding.
Intimacy is intimacy not only between me and God, with me and others, with me and myself, and me with the world around me, that if there is incongruency there, I will not experience intimacy that can hold me in a sufficient enough way to not motivate me eventually to act out in an illegitimate way to fill that hole, right?
Right.
And that's what I think I see in this story, that currently, and the story's not over, but currently is being lost, is an opportunity for intimacy and connection.
So good, Joe. So good. I'm reminded of there's it's just so easy to freaking hide. And honestly, just working with priests, I'm like, it is a we get an inside peek into just how gnarly of a life it is. I mean, it is like isolating, lonely. They're not with others. I mean, a lot of the guys in the group, they're like, I just like the brotherhood here. Like, it's just good to be, even if it's an hour a week, be with. And then they have a brother they got to talk to every day. But one of them just has, and I really relate. It's really cool to just relate with him on the drinking thing. He's just navigating just alcohol, and he's navigated it for a while. But he told me, I don't know how long ago it was, but basically he told the parish secretary, when the box of wine comes, don't put it in the secrecy. If you could hold on to it and hide it from me, I don't want to know where it is. But whenever I ask for a bottle for mass, I'll need that bottle. I'm like, come freaking on. Like, let's go. Let's live above reproach. Let's say, if you don't have anybody, if you don't have a brother, ask the parish secretary for help. Like, hey, I don't trust myself. Take this computer. I don't trust myself. Take this box. It's just, so there's a lot of, as you said, there's so much compassion and understanding, and I'm not surprised or scandalized by anything anybody shares anymore. Yep. And it's just like, yeah, it makes sense. I get it. But can we live in the light? Can we confess the truth? Can we care for the individual and not worry about protecting our brand of whatever, the church, or protecting, whoever or whatever? Whereas the real, the self-protection only leads to you hiding stuff, and that stuff you hide will end up controlling you and lording over you your entire life as you're stuck in the dark room by yourself, not in a good way.
Yeah. The other example of this that came out recently is a guy who hopefully is on beginning the journey of doing that. And that's Michael Tait, the lead singer or former lead singer of the Newsboys, who allegations have been circling around or kind of in the background for many people in the industry, say a long time, that many people knew that this was going on or that there was an issue there. And for various reasons, I think it was snuffed out for a long time, but came to a head at the beginning or earlier this year, and then finally was acknowledged by him. He left the group in January, and then earlier this month came out and said, publicly, he posted something on social media and wrote up a short, basically confession while being relatively vague. Approached it head on. Yeah, I've been living a double life, and I gotta go off and do the deep work, and I need healing, and I have not been living the way that I said I was living. And in his case, it involved grooming men with 20-something-year-old guys while he was on the road, using hard drugs, cocaine, drinking, and living, I think, in many ways, the rocker lifestyle that is glamorized and held up as an image of the life in a non-Christian context. He was living that in a Christian context, and clearly was destroying him, his identity, his capacity to be able to hold it all together, and came to a head. And what I really loved is his honesty. And this is kind of, again, do we know that in this situation, Ohio, it happened or not happen? No, we don't.
No.
But it smells a little fishy to me, I guess. That's where I'll stay. I think there's more than to the story than what we know today. He came out and said, it's true. I've been living a double life. I've been doing that stuff. I can't do that anymore. It's not good for me. It's not good for you. I've let people down. Sorry to my band. Sorry to my family. Sorry to all the people that came to our shows and believed that I was bringing you somewhere, and that I wasn't, and where I wasn't. And the apology, the acknowledgement of your current state is one thing. There's much work to be done beyond that. But I appreciated the sincerity of the acknowledgement on his part of, I've been caught, and it's all true. And there's a certain kind of, and so many people have spoke to this, it's like when you get caught, there's a kind of dramatic relief. It is, John Christ talks about this when he was touring on the road, and allegations started to circle, and it all comes out, and people are like, dude, are you mortified by all this? And he's like, no, like I've been tortured and mortified for years. I finally feel relief.
Right.
Because somebody else knows.
Right.
And everybody knows. And so I don't have to try to maintain it anymore and hide anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to figure out how to quit and stop doing what I was doing that wasn't good for me and wasn't good for other people.
Yep.
But finally, I don't have to live this incongruent reality of this duality of experience and being one thing and saying one thing and then turning around and being something completely different, which again has this inevitable pull towards dramatic ends, trying to look more perfect, meanwhile becoming more and more extreme in this behavior that drives you and the stuff you find yourself doing. And I hear the hopefulness in him, in Michael Tait. I hope that's his experience. And then on the flip side, it's in the industry, I've stayed up on it a little bit. You hear people talking about like, oh, everybody knew this. This was like, everybody knew this was a thing. The band comes out and says like, we knew nothing. We're totally mortified. He needs to go off and do his work. And it's kind of this distancing.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like it's kind of this like we never were aware of this. That's crazy, And all of this stuff happened close to home. This was when they were touring together, went in their shared space, in their, so there's this skepticism of like, there's no way you couldn't have known, It's like, once you've seen somebody on cocaine, for example, pretty easy to be like, what's wrong with you, buddy? Like, you got something going on.
You got a lot of energy.
Yeah, and everybody knows. I mean, anyone that's ever toured in that proximity knows there's really no hidden life.
Totally.
You're living in a tour bus.
Yeah.
Like you could not be in closer quarters than you were in my 10 by 10 dorm room, stacked three high, back in Ireland Hall. It's like freshman year. It's like there's you are sleeping 3 feet away from each other. And it's just that part of it is sad because I think it does exactly, and it's also again completely understandable. Is like we don't want to be destroyed by this. We don't want to be exposed by this. We don't want, in their thing that they posted, it was like we have all these kids. We got 14 or whatever kids between the 4 of us other band members. Like we can't fathom something like this. Again, and it's the certain sort of like distancing, leaning out that is all too inevitable in the human experience when someone and love, the truth finally comes out, and either you were complicit in it or you went along with it and you ignored it, whatever. And now it's like we didn't do it. Keep listening to our music, like let us keep touring. And
Golly.
It's so hard. I understand the motivation there. It's like you don't want to be dragged into it. And to some extent, it's like we didn't do that. He did.
Right.
And there's the half-truth of like, and we didn't know. And that's the thing that everybody's blowing the whistle on, which, again, almost drags them into it more than they want to be drug into it in the first place of like, yo, no, you knew. Like everybody in the industry is like,
now
we
what
all
are you trying to hide?
Yeah, it's like I wasn't touring with him and I knew, it's like I wrote songs with y'all and I knew.
Yeah.
There's no way on earth y'all couldn't have known.
Yeah. Yeah, now they're suspect. Now you're suspicious.
Yeah. Which is, again, it's a common reality in the way that these things unfold, right? I mean, these things are in addiction, in out of control behavior. There's a certain kind of inevitability of the way that relationships get distorted and the way they change and the way that they're predictable. And the hope is that the hope is for Michael is that he goes and does the deep work, right? Finds the roots, understands why, learns to be able to give himself meaningful solutions for those places in him that are driving that behavior
Totally.
And it sounds
Yep.
like he is at least telling the world that he's planning to do that, or that he's already started
Yeah,
that process.
that's so good. Yeah, this is the danger of in this platform building, self promoting world, just in general, where anybody can all of a sudden have a platform and blow up, and we start building something like this image you have to maintain and protect. It takes a lot of energy to maintain, and if we don't put character over kingdom, and by kingdom I mean your kingdom that you're building, it's a cracked foundation waiting for the house to fall. And it gets, and I know some people that have they put themselves out there and they're like, here's what I'm doing, and I have a thing to uphold now. I have a brand I got to keep up. I got promises I got to keep. I got abs I got to keep saying, an 8-pack I got to stay sharp. And meanwhile, my family's falling apart, and all this shit's falling down, and it's tough. And that's why, it's just, I'm so grateful. And there's so much more work that God has to do in my own life, but I'm just so grateful that he's taken me and you right into the dark room. Like, God, I don't want a platform if it's, if you're not calling me to it, and if I can't carry it, I don't want it. But it's just, does that make sense? I mean, I don't want to put a bushel basket over, but
I think there's something to that. I think there is pressure when you start, talking or saying something of like, I need to be the best, or I need to be I need to be perfect in this realm. And now there's a certain reality to the integrity of whatever your message is. If you say I'm a fitness instructor, you should probably be fit, right?
Yeah, probably.
But there's a pressure that I've felt of like, we say that exercise is really important. It's the best way to get a natural dopamine hit. And like, I've lost 40 pounds. I still got love handles. I should probably get that worked out. And it's like, I want to be physically fit so that I can be able-bodied for my children. I tore my ACL, meniscus. Now I got a hernia. Like, I'm falling apart. I'm not an image of anything. I'm an image of how to not break down when you're 33, right? Learn from my case. It's like I could put myself up as a case study, but it's like, I don't want to be dishonest about that. Like, I want to be able to say at the same time of us trying to lead this thing, like, I'm not perfect in that regard, and I want to keep pushing with y'all. And I want to be as motivated by everybody around me as they are motivated by my work. But that also doesn't mean I have an excuse for not doing the work, for not getting better. But there can be this pressure to be like, pretend. I hear it in myself sometimes, like, pretend that tell people you work 60 minutes versus 10 every day, Tell people that you've been working out every day when it's actually only been once the past 2 weeks.
That's good, Joe.
It's like, actually, what if I was just honest?
Right.
Like, you know what? Like, stuff hit the fan this past week. I've been in the hospital. It's like, that's not an excuse, guys. Like, I want to figure out how to work out and to live in accordance to my ideals. And life has thrown me a challenge that I need support in this situation and scenario to learn how to become better in. But I haven't been. And that's okay, right? And so to learn how to do that in our own lives, I think is really powerful. And hopefully that's the context in the community. Again, the goal of learning to not live with the porn as a solution to your problems, and to find your purpose and calling and to pursue it. The KingMakers community, like, it's not about being able to be machismo, perfect, got it all together in every area of my life. Men, it's about being able to step up to the plate and give it all we got, and to be perfectly honest when we go back to the dugout after striking out of like, you know what, I'm still only batting 270. It's like, I don't need to pretend when I get back there. It's like, guys, I'm pretty sure I'm hitting 400. It's like, I'm pretty sure I'm the best. It's just like, we only do that when we're pretty sure that everybody knows little enough about us to be able to back that up with fact or fiction, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, we start telling people stories, which then necessitates that they see less and less of the reality.
Right.
To your point of these examples of incongruency where you could point to in your your own life or in people that you know. It's like once I start saying something out there, it necessitates that you know less about the totality of my existence in life, because what if you did? You might think I'm a total sham. Yeah, that's my hope for my own life, is what we're building here and what we're doing, and for those that we walk with, is that the ability to be able to be more honest, to be able to be more real, to be able to be more seen,
Yep.
just as we are,
Yep.
and to push each other to get better. It's like, yeah, this is where I'm at right now. That's
right.
it. You know,
Yep.
I work with a guy that I get to see every Thursday, and I tell him every week, and this is the work he's doing right now, getting back on his feet and making baby steps to getting real progress as a young man in his life, is when, you know, for so long he beat the crap out of himself. And he had this image a couple weeks ago of like himself in a corner as a little kid with like his hands over his head, and it's him as an older person in the room that's holding the whip. It's like, how empowered are you to go back out into life and keep pushing when every time you mess up or screw up, you're right there with the whip, ready to beat yourself down? And what does it look like to give yourself an extended hand and say it's okay? And a couple months ago, he couldn't even get the words out to be able to say to himself, it's okay, I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
When he feel like he didn't live up to his expectation for himself today. And it gotten to him to the point where, like, working a dead-end job, barely making ends meet, relying on everybody else around him, playing video games, eating like, you know, like every area of his life is out of control because of this this reality, this dichotomy of experience of expecting himself to be much better than he is, and then any time he doesn't measure up, which is all times, every minute of every day, he's beating himself by not measuring up to that expectation.
Yeah.
And so which one do you do? Do you lower the expectations? Do you lower the bar? Or do you become better? And the answer is usually both, to some extent. Yes, it's okay, I didn't live according to my ideals today. Try again tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And fall in love with the process.
Right.
As we talk about so often, learn to love the work that I get to engage with today, to remind myself that this is where the reward is in doing the stuff. And watch how quickly, as you begin to do both at once, your circumstance and situation can change. Anything else to add to all that?
That's good stuff. We should probably stick the landing. My bladder is full, baby.
Oh, come on. All right, guys, we're out of here for today. Nick needs to use the restroom, so that's a wrap. Again, right now, KingMakers Community is open. We're accepting applications. If you're looking to build an operating system in your life, get purpose, calling, a plan in place. Where do I want to be in 12 months? And then to be able to have the support and community to be able to do that, you can find the application on our website or in the show notes. Go apply for that. We'd love to talk to you about if this is the right fit for where you are at currently in life. Freedom Group. We're going to start 2 this month, which I'm pretty excited about. 2 freedom groups. So you can go ahead and make sure you're in one of those. We got a couple more spots open, but I'm stacked with discovery calls through the end of this week. So you'll want to inquire quick if you want to be in one of those calls. Otherwise, a wait list will open right after those groups are launched. We're starting a group pretty much every month right now. So let us know if porn is no longer the solution to your problems and you want it out. We'd love to help you get free. And we got a couple exciting things we're cooking up. I'm looking forward. We're going to do a 72-hour phone fast coming up soon. Stay tuned for that. We should probably talk about a date for our upcoming food, water only fast. It's been, I think the last time we did that was earlier this spring, right? We got to do that again.
It was Lent.
Sooner than later. And the Outbound registration is next week. The registration deadline, rather, is next week, end of next week. So if you want to go into the wilderness to reconnect to go and journey with other men who are pursuing freedom from sexual issues in their lives and to experience deeper healing. Coach Chris on our team is taking a group of guys out into the woods in July. Get more information about that in the show notes and apply quick because next week will be your last chance to do it. All right, y'all. Peace.
Well,